Welcome back to Say No to Lashon Hara, Day 57. This entire series is being done for the continued health of Chana Bat Semefega. The Chafetz Chaim explains that oftentimes when we hear Lashon Hara, we don't know exactly how to respond to the fact that we've heard something negative. Now, the laws are actually very difficult and complex, so a person might need to get advice as to how to deal with such information, but the general rule is as follows. If a person hears Lashon Hara, we're not allowed to believe it. You are, however, allowed to protect yourself from damage in case the information is correct. But remember this. Number one, the Torah never gave you a right to use that information to hurt the person or do something to them. It never gave you the right or permission to cause them any sort of monetary loss or damage. It never gave you permission to hate the person for what you think might be true. And lastly, you can't cancel any obligations that you might have to that person. So let's try and imagine, says the Chafetz Chaim, the following scenario. A person walks into the synagogue and he's collecting money, and someone says to you, I know that this guy is a fake. Actually, he has tons of money, maybe even more than you or I do. Now, since the halacha is that I'm not allowed to believe Lashon Hara, but I'm able to protect myself, here that would not be considered protecting oneself from damage. You have to believe that the Lashon Hara is not true, and therefore the person is in exactly the same state as he was before. So if you give that person $1 every day, then you must continue giving that person the same amount. So to stop or to give him less would be, as an example, causing him monetary loss or acting on the information. However, even more importantly, as we explained, you're not allowed to hate the person or chime in or, God forbid, pass that information to someone else and say, someone told me that this person is not honest or that he's not poor. So the Chafetz Chaim says, now that I've heard that information, and I know the 4 things that we've just learned, and I know what I'm not supposed to do, but I also know that I've just actually broken that law. So as an example, either I accepted it as a fact, so I hate the person. I accepted it as a fact, so I changed my behavior towards them. I accepted it as a fact, so I spread more Lashon Hara about him by telling other people this idea. What am I supposed to do now? The Chafetz Chaim explains that there's 3 things that a person needs to do. The first thing is to be mehazek yourself and make sure that the information in your mind that you consider to be true is no longer something that you believe. We'll explain in a minute how a person is supposed to do that. The second 2 steps are traditional Teshuva steps. You have to accept on yourself not to do the sin again. In general, not to accept Lashon Hara, but even more so specifically with regards to this person. And finally, to tell Hashem and admit your sin, which is called vidui to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Those 2 things are regular Teshuva-related halachot. However, the first one sounds very difficult to do. How in the world am I supposed to take information that I already believe to be true and just tell myself it's not true, it's not true, it's not true? Is that even going to work? Rav Avram Pam explained that there is a way to do this. Maybe not the way you might have thought, though. You don't will yourself to forget the information or to not believe it. That just doesn't work. But instead, you start to think and focus on the mitzvah of betzedek tishpot amitecha, which is the obligation that a person has to judge someone favorably. So let's just say as an example, you heard that this person hurt someone that's close to you, a friend, a family member. The first thing you tell yourself is, I'm sure that the story is not exactly the way that I heard it. There's probably more to the story that I don't know. Or maybe the person is going through a very difficult time and therefore acted in a way which is incorrect, but you know what? I might not have fared any better in the situation because with that kind of stress, who knows what I would have done? If you keep telling yourself these ideas of judging favorably and you focus on it again and again, eventually what will happen is you'll find that the thought that was embedded in your mind, very sure, very confident, slowly starts to lose its grip and lose its certainty. And eventually what happens is your compassion, your empathy, and your understanding take over. And you realize that perhaps the story that I believed to be true and I understood in its full ramifications is not what happened at all.